Today's podcast is brought to you by Chikara Wrestle Factory, 4711 Wingate Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, specializing in lucha libre, porosu, European, British, and German styles, mixed martial arts, and American pro wrestling, all built into the curriculum at the Wrestle Factory, where they strive to create the most well-rounded performers active today. Hey, yo, Fro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out and click the subscribe button to show your support. Hello everyone, welcome to this loaded episode of the Fro Wrestling Podcast. There's a whole lot of stuff going on in the wrestling world. We want to make sure we get a chance to cover it all. I'm going to move rather quickly this episode just to make sure we have enough time to get everything in. Let's get started with Stephanie McMahon. She recently did an interview with ESPN where she discussed the women's revolution, the influence that both she and Triple H have on the product, and really gave a lot of the credit for that to herself and Triple H. She did cite that the fans were getting tired of the uneventful matches and they really wanted to see the athleticism emphasized in women's wrestling, and we've seen a lot of that in the last couple years, especially with feuds like Sasha Banks versus Charlotte and things like that. But one talent in particular, Gail Kim, TNA Knockout, TNA Hall of Famer, she took a little exception with that opinion. She came out on Twitter and she put up something, and her statement was, "My opinion is Impact Wrestling did. No jade, just truth, in my personal opinion. I never got my opportunity till then, and it's never stopped." And you really have to think about this for a moment. Gail Kim and Awesome Kong were the first two to really tear the house down as the female talents, headlining and main eventing episodes of the television show when TNA was at its peak. This is not some unfounded conversation that Gail Kim is just a bitter TNA wrestler. She's got a lot of validity to what she says. ODB, Gail Kim, Awesome Kong, Taylor Wilde, all these different talents that they had when their Knockouts division was really setting the stage for premium quality wrestling. WWE did follow suit, and Triple H, I think, was innovative in that he thought about this going forward. He saw what TNA was doing and knew that WWE could do it even better. So Triple H has taken a lot of time to cultivate this women's division that we're seeing now, where we have so many premier female talents, but you have to wonder how much of that would have happened had it not been for the overwhelming success of the Impact Wrestling Knockouts division. So I'm not going to say that Triple H and Stephanie don't deserve some credit, but I certainly don't think that they are entitled to all the credit for the women's revolution, kind of the way it gets presented often. Neville in the news today claiming he should have been the automatic United Kingdom champion by default. If you think about it, he really is head and tails above all the UK talents that wrestled in that tournament. That's just my opinion and many others, but I could see where he's coming from. He said he has no problem getting in the ring and wrestling Tyler Bate, and at this point, with him putting that statement out there, you kind of have to wonder. It's a bizarre situation when you're the Cruiserweight champion and you have this UK championship. Him throwing this out there, it almost makes it sound like it's something he'd like to have happen. Now, the problem is, you're not going to unify those championships. You just went through all the production of creating the UK division, so you need to cultivate that. And you have him doing his thing with Aries. Unless you're going to transition the Cruiserweight Championship to Austin Aries and have him then transfer his interest to the UK title. But with all the build-up he's had recently and the moniker of the King of the Cruiserweights and all that, I can't see that happening. So this is a really interesting and strange conversation to have with Neville. Sports Illustrated's Extra Mustard, they had a WrestleMania mailbag, and there was a question sent in to Marty Jannetty, formerly of the Rockers, and it asked him about why there was never a match with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 8 after their barbershop incident where, they broke up the Rockers, Shawn Michaels kicked him in the face, threw him through the glass, and all that. And he actually made it clear that actually was the plan. But he has a quote in the interview with Sports Illustrated's Extra Mustard, and he says the barbershop window segment was actually setting up a match at WrestleMania 8 between Shawn and I. A few things didn't go the way someone wanted, so they ended up completely scrapping the idea, but that was the whole idea of the barbershop. We needed 20 to 25 minutes with a jump start to get the people on their feet. We had a match with a pace that was blistering in Denver a few months before WrestleMania 8, and we could have had a match at WrestleMania that people would still be talking about. When it was over in Denver, the crowd cheered both of us in appreciation of what they saw. We were building Shawn up at the time, so that's the direction we would have gone. So what he's really saying is kind of in the mold of ECW, when you would get that really great back and forth wrestling with like Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero, and the fans would just come to their feet. Didn't matter who the good guy was, who the bad guy was. The people were just blown away with the actual wrestling, that they got one of those kinds of reactions from the fans. And as people have cited in the past, when Vince McMahon or the decision makers in WWE don't get the reaction that they want, want or that they're anticipating, oftentimes they'll change their trajectory of what they want to plan out and go in a whole nother route. Now, at WrestleMania 8, he ended up wrestling, Shawn Michaels wrestled Tito Santana. He pretty much squashed Tito Santana. But the reality is, this was not the first time. Jake the Snake Roberts was at one point in line for a monster push against Hulk Hogan for the World Championship. And when they had their first couple matches, Jake Roberts would be heading to the back and you would start hearing chanting for Jake the Snake Roberts. And Vince hears that, and that's the end of that. You can't have the bad guy getting cheered over Hulkamania, so they changed direction there. And I'm sure there are many other instances where that's happened. It's kind of a shame for Marty Jannetty. He hasn't done anything of substance since then. He had a tag title reign with the 1-2-3 Kid at one point, but outside of that, really didn't do anything important. He had that short Intercontinental title reign when he did pop up and take the title from Shawn Michaels for a very short period of time. I think he had like 1 or 2 title defenses before he lost it back to him, but really didn't do anything with his career after that. He had a lot of issues, personal demons that hopefully it sounds like he may be getting the hang of now, but it's really a shame. You got to kind of wonder what could have been if things had gone a little differently back in, I guess, what was that, 1991, 92, somewhere in that time frame. So moving forward, Goldberg was one of the first guests on the ENC Pod of Awesomeness podcast, which is Edge and Christian's new podcast. And they had this great conversation going on. They asked him about his relationship with Vince McMahon. He said it's very different now than it was 13 years ago. His quote was, "I can sit down and I can have a conversation with Vince McMahon and we can look each other in the eye and we can speak on different terms. I believe it's a relationship. It's that I wish I would have had the first time. I don't know, because we're both older. I don't know, man. I could just tell you that it's completely different, guys." And that seems to be the truth. It seems like he is so happy. Vince is really enamored with the pop that he got when he came out at Survivor Series. He's totally taken WWE by storm. I wish they would have given him more time in the ring for this run. Ever since Fastlane, you're the Universal Champion. No one's seen you on TV all but once to get F5'd. So I don't know how you keep your world champion. It's kind of like when Brock won the title. I don't know how you keep your world champion off TV for an extended period of time, heading into the biggest pay-per-view of the year. That's, to me, is not smart business. And it hasn't allowed Goldberg to cultivate the fans that he had the first run, where he had actual matches. Right now, there are people who are like crapping on this match because Goldberg hasn't done anything in the ring. He's hit a few spears, he's hit a few jackhammers. That's it. We haven't seen if he's able to handle an actual match. So WrestleMania will be very interesting. Pacific Coast Wrestling has presented their High Tide event, and I'm bringing this up for a very specific reason. There was a major return at this card. There's tons of matches on it. It's actually a pretty good show. Penta Zero M defeated Flip Gordon. Ray Phoenix defeated Extreme Tiger. Willie Mack over Keith Lee. War Beast, which is Almighty Sheik. Jacob Fatu and Brody King. They defeat Los Luchas, which is Zokre and Phoenix Star and their tag team partner Hunter P.S. Hayes in a no disqualification match. Sami Callihan defeated Jeff Cobb. Mr. 450 defeated Douglas James and Alexander Hammerstone to retain the PCW Light Heavyweight title. And the match that I really care about, the PCW Heavyweight Championship match, Rob Van Dam returns to the ring and defeats MVP with a 5-star frog splash to retain the PCW Heavyweight title. He has not wrestled in quite a while. It's interesting to me that PCW, Pacific Coast Wrestling, would leave their world championship on a guy who isn't actually wrestling very often, but John Morrison came out at the end of the night to challenge the winner of the main event, so it looks like it'll be John Morrison versus Rob Van Dam for the PCW title on June 2nd. Keep your eyes out for that. If you're a fan or in the area of the Pacific Coast Wrestling organization, should be an amazing event. Pro Wrestling Noah held their Great Voyage in Yokohama 2017. This is the first interpromotional deal that they've done with Impact Wrestling, and there's a ton of talent on the card, and I have the whole card run down here in front of me. I'm going to focus on the TNA stars just because I haven't had a lot of time to really focus on Pro Wrestling Noah's talent in the past. I don't want to throw a bunch of names out there that people aren't going to know, but Cowboy James Storm was at the event. He defeated Kaito Kiyomiya. Storm came out to his Long Necks and Rednecks theme song. He put him down with a backbreaker and a last call super kick. Typical James Storm physical match, good match back and forth. Eddie Edwards was there. He defeated Atsushi Kotoge. This was another great match. It was about just shy of 20 minutes long. Dives over the top ropes, through the ropes, high spots all over the place. Exactly what you would expect from Eddie Edwards. The ending sequence was just out of this world. It was Kotoge got busted open. He got busted in the face. He caught a sick super kick, a power bomb into a Tiger driver, and then he kicks out. and Eddie ends up hitting the Shining Wizard to the face for the win. So great match back and forth. Eddie Edwards is actually a veteran of Pro Wrestling Noah. He was there in the past. He had feuds with WWE NXT star Hideo Itami, so check those out on YouTube if you can find them. But they're just great matches, you know, and for people who don't typically get in a ring with each other, it's great that they had this kind of chemistry. Another one of the TNA or Impact Wrestling stars on the show was Moose. He teamed up with Kazuma Sakamoto to take on Nomichi Marufuji and KJ Muto, who is the Great Muta. Great Muta's 54 years old now. He's clearly not the same Muta he was back in 1989 when he was tearing things down with Sting, but he did come in at the end of the match. He hit a bunch of dragon screws, which is like his signature now because he can't do a lot of the high-flying stuff he used to do. All in all, great show. They have a whole lot of other matches on the card. If you are not familiar with Pro Wrestling Noah, go check that out. You're missing out on a really interesting promotion. It's time for Indie Intros. This is our newest segment. 3 promotions for the diehard fans to seek out more wrestling action. Today we're going with Melbourne City Wrestling out of Australia. And if you go to YouTube, look up MCW 2017 James vs. Sexton. And what it'll bring up is a recap of their show where these two guys went to war, and it'll give you just a general idea of what their product looks like. Again, I always try to rate these things against Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor to me has insane talent, not WWE level production, but they're worth watching. So I use them as the benchmark. And in this situation, the action pretty much on par with Ring of Honor. The production value, little less. So, interesting matches. Please go check it out. We also have Northern Championship Wrestling. This is located in Canada. Not a huge fan of their website. Their website's really difficult to follow. It's all French. That doesn't help. But even without the French part, you want to go see videos if you want to get a sample of their matches. They don't have that. They have entire pay-per-views you can watch, or they have show summaries, but you don't get to actually watch a full match. Now, the one way you can is if you go to YouTube and look up NCW WrestleFest 9, you'll get a whole 2.5 hour pay-per-view, and you can check that out and see what you think of their action. Their production quality is like old ECW. You're not looking at something that's going to have pyrotechnics and all the crazy music and sounds and flashy lights and great camera angles, but the in-ring action is actually not too bad. It's actually pretty good stuff. We also have for you World Wonder Ring Stardom, which is a Japanese promotion focused on female wrestling. And if you go to YouTube, look up World Wonder Ring Stardom's Io Shirai versus Starfire. Full match with commentary. Io Shirai is going to NXT shortly. You get to see her in action for this Stardom promotion and get a sampling of what it is that they're recruiting when WWE is going overseas and pulling talent from these faraway places. Today in pro wrestling history, 16 years ago, this is probably the biggest day in the history of professional wrestling. WCW presents their 288th and final edition of Monday Nitro from Panama City, Florida. It was supposed to be Night of Champions. Like, every championship was going to be defended. But the show, what was very bizarre is people who were all over the sheets at the time knew that the WWF had purchased WCW. The show kicked off with Vince McMahon announcing he had bought his competition, and he would tell WCW's talent in a simulcast on TNN and on TNT later in the night what the future of WCW was to be. In that show, Booker T defeated Scott Steiner to unify the WCW World Title and United States Championships. Rey Mysterio Jr. and Billy Kidman defeated 3 Count, which was Shannon Moore and Evan Courageous, and the Jung Dragons, Kaz Hayashi and Jimmy Wang Yang, to become the number 1 contenders for the WCW Cruiserweight Tag Team Championship. Shane Helms defeated Chavo Guerrero Jr. to retain the WCW Cruiserweight title. Sean O'Hare and Chuck Palumbo defeated Lance Storm and Mike Awesome to retain the WCW Tag Team titles. Sean Stasiak defeated Bam Bam Bigelow in like 83 seconds, and if Bigelow would have won, he would have got the tattoo Stasiak. Rey Mysterio Jr. and Billy Kidman defeated Elix Skipper and Kid Romeo to win the Cruiserweight Tag Team Championship, and Sting defeated Ric Flair by submission in what was one of the most emotional matches I've ever seen in my life. Right after Nitro, then you go to WWF, where they present Raw is War from Cleveland, Ohio, and this would be the last Raw of the Monday Night Wars. An announcement on WCW's future was made right around the midpoint of the show when it was announced that, Vince was out there, he was going to talk about what he was going to do with WCW, and he cued the music, and here came Shane McMahon to let everybody know that it wasn't Vince McMahon that bought the company, it was Shane McMahon, and Shane had bought it, and this would eventually be what would fuel their invasion angle later in the summer, when they brought in all the ECW guys, and the WCW and ECW guys joined forces and took on WWE. This would be the 115th consecutive week that Raw had beaten Nitro head-to-head. And, the match card, and the reason I'm going to repeat the match card is so you understand, back when the wars were going on, every match was important. Nowadays, we get 15 matches and, one matters. Back then, Taz defeated Val Venus in 52 seconds in a lumberjack match. William Regal defeated Crash by disqualification. Chris Benoit and the Hardy Boys defeated Christian Edge and Kurt Angle. X-Pac defeated Test. Eddie Guerrero was the special referee. The Big Show defeated Chris Jericho. And Steve Austin and The Rock defeated the Brothers of Destruction, Kane and The Undertaker. So what you could tell from that is WWE really took the time to put together a solid Monday night show. And that's what you had to do during the Monday Night Wars. Now that there's no real competition, they don't have to do that anymore. Now they could sit back and take it easy, and their booking has really not been the same ever since. This is why having a rival promotion rise up and really become a force in pro wrestling would actually be a good thing for the business. Give WWE a run for their money so that we can see somebody make the creative process in WWE be that much better. 5 years ago today, Progress Wrestling debuted with Chapter 1 in the beginning from the Garage in London, England. They put up emphasis in their promotion on wrestlers from the United Kingdom. Not that they won't bring people in, they will, but only on occasion. This show is going to put on their 100th episode this November, but their debut show was all about First Champion. The Progress Championship semifinals, El Ligero defeated Noam Dar, who's now in 205 Live. Nathan Cruz defeated Colossus Kennedy. Mike Manson defeated Colt Cabana. Marty Scurll defeated Zack Sabre Jr. Xander Cooper defeated Darryl Allen and Zach Gibson in a non-tournament three-way match. And in the Progress Championship match, Nathan Cruz takes the title by defeating El Ligero, Marty Scurll, and Mike Mason in the final in a four-way match. This show, if you've never seen a Progress Wrestling event, you need to go check that out. Progress Wrestling puts on a quality product, and if you like the WWE UK tournament and some of the talents that were in that, oftentimes they're featured in Progress Wrestling. So go check that out. If you have never seen that before, you could probably pull that up on YouTube through their link. We're going to do today's look back match. Today's look back match on YouTube, go there and look up Eddie Gilbert versus Cactus Jack. 09-15-90. That is from September 15th, 1990 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And this is pre-ECW. This is when they had the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance. And this was the TWA Autumn Armageddon from September 15th, 1990 that saw Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, the late great wrestler, take on Cactus Jack, a.k.a. Mick Foley, a.k.a. Dude Love. The matches, Mick Foley clearly isn't the star that he is now, but you could see where there was clearly the talent was there. Eddie Gilbert, he's one of my favorites all time. I love the hot shot finisher. I know a million people have used it since then, but he was the originator of the hot shot, just picking up your opponent and flapjacking him on the top rope. I absolutely loved Eddie Gilbert. God rest his soul. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. We're going to go in fantasy booking time now. We've been running through our tournament. We got our next couple matches for you. We have match 35. Eric Young from NXT, Sanity, who is the TNA World Champion, and Jay Briscoe, who was Ring of Honor Champion. So, Eric Young versus Jay Briscoe in match 35. Match 36, Nigel McGuinness, also a Ring of Honor former champion, versus former TNA Heavyweight Champion James Storm. So, in the YouTube comment section, tell me which ones of those guys would win those matches, and we will move the person with the highest votes into the next round of our tournament. Don't forget about the Fro Life Planning Contest. For those who don't know what Fro Life Planning is, we help students and adult learners find their path to higher education or a new career. Every month I give away one free 30-minute one-on-one phone consultation. We get one lucky winner that will help them plan their path to the next step, no matter what that step is. There's no purchase necessary. All you can do is open up your computer, boot up iTunes, pull up the Fro Wrestling Podcast page on iTunes and click subscribe. When you're done that, give me a review. I need to know what you think. I need to know how you feel about the podcast. Give me some feedback. Once you do that, pop over to our other website at www.frolifeplanning.com/contest and put your email in there, and you'll be entered for the chance to win that one-on-one phone consultation. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us in episode 54. We'll review everything going on in the world of wrestling. Special thanks as always go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all of our music and sound effects that we use today's show. Today's podcast was sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to www.thegamecrafter.com/sketchypeople to pick up your copy today. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. We want to thank you for listening to today's podcast. We encourage you to go to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com to learn more about what Mr. Fro can do for you on your path to higher education. Remember, Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. And if you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, go to www.tsjsports.com/WWE for my latest articles on the world of professional wrestling. Posted one today on the results of the lead up to Sakura Genesis 2017 from New Japan Pro Wrestling, so go check that out. Until next episode, everybody, take care. I'll see you later.